Super duper. Right. Good evening, team. Thank you again for joining me. It's genuinely very exciting. Tonight's focus training nerdy Zoom. We are doing predatory motor patterns tonight. And genuinely, when I say I'm thrilled, I really am to see so many faces that have been coming back week after week and some new faces that are joining us tonight in the new year. Very, very exciting stuff. So for those of you who don't know me yet, I'm Rach. I'm the owner and founder of Focus Dog Training and of Bob and Pal's Dog Walking. I describe myself as a force-free, science-based trainer, and I absolutely adore sharing all this information with you guys. The idea is that it's dog training information that you might see or hear out in the world, but isn't necessarily easily accessible to do a deep dive into and really figure out. So I'm breaking it into chunks and bringing it to you piece by piece, and it's really good fun. So these sessions are designed to be very informative. I try to give you a lot of information, but I also like to make sure that you understand it and it applies to your situation as is. So if you would like to ask questions, please use the chat function as you're going through. Normally monitored by Lauren. Lauren's not here with us tonight, so we've got one of our esteemed members, Lucy, is taking the role for us, and she's going to be monitoring the chat function. So pop your questions in there and we'll ask Lucy at the end. She'll ask them to me and I'll be able to answer them for you. That is it. That's the housekeeping done. Let's get going then. So predatory motor patterns, they are an absolutely integral part of a dog's natural behaviour. And grasping this concept can really enhance our understanding of our dog as an owner. However, I'm going to start right at the beginning with a really big, sparkly headline too, in fact. We're going to pause. I'm going to be talking about genetics. I'm going to be talking about sexual selection and choosing dogs to breed based on behaviours that they are demonstrating. However, our dogs are individuals, much the same as we are too. So you may find that your dog doesn't display an enjoyment for a part of the predatory motor pattern that we think that they might do. And it's really important to be aware that there is more difference between dogs of a set breed than there are between dogs overall, much the same as humans. And we talk about race and we talk about skin colour. There's significantly more differences between people of a set, say, race or gender than there are in humans in general. So it's really important to remember that our dog is unique and our dog will have their own likes and dislikes. Another sparkly note before we kick off, the predatory motor pattern, it's totally different to the fight or flight response. So for those of us who have reactive dogs or worried dogs that perhaps go out in their environment and are overwhelmed by their environment, or go out and they're very hypervigilant and they're looking for the next scary thing, we don't often see a great deal of them doing these predatory motor patterns because they're not in a place where they're able to relax enough. If they're in fight or flight mode and they're walking around like this, they're unlikely to stop, to pause, to have a bit of fun and then come back to us. So oftentimes when we have reactive dogs, we might not see any of this happening until we get into very specific circumstances where we perhaps get them in a secure field and we go, they're totally different in here. And then we get to see things, or perhaps at home or in the garden. So that's a really important sparkly headline to have as well, that actually we might not see this in a fair few of our dogs. But we will see it in lots of them, those of them who go out and have a little bit of giddy fun, and we can see a lot of the good stuff happening here. So we'll break it down then. So the predatory motor pattern, it is a sequence of observable moments or movements that dogs do, usually when they're in pursuit of a prey. Okay, dogs are prey animals. They are the ones that are going to go out, the predators, sorry, they're going to go out and find their prey, catch their prey to stay alive, right? They're lucky, they get fed by us most of the time. But of course, speaking through like evolution, they weren't. They had to do that themselves, didn't they? So predatory motor pattern consists of 6 stages. I've got my little squares of paper for you again to help out. I know how wonderful they are, right? First stage is to search for the prey. Second stage, they're going to stalk their prey. We're going to break this down, don't worry, I'm just showing you it. Third stage is to chase the prey. Fourth stage, they're going to grab and bite the prey. Fifth stage is slightly harder. It's a kill bite. So it's a deeper bite than that grab bite. And the 6th stage, our favourite one, is to dissect it, possibly and or eat it. Not a guarantee on either end of that. They may or may not. Okay, so Those behaviours are deeply rooted in a dog's evolutionary history, serving very clearly essential roles in survival and hunting. But more recently, if we think of the dog's like history of being this really long timeline, right back to the Ice Age. We remember we were talking about the Ice Age before, weren't we, in dominance and stuff. And there's this really short, very recent snippet where we've been breeding them ourselves, haven't we? Where we've been saying, that thing, I like that thing that you do, I'm going to breed for it and I'm going to pick up on it. So dogs have this huge evolutionary history where they were doing it themselves, but then this much shorter period where we've been getting ourselves, our mucky little fingers involved and picking out the bits that we want. So hunting and working, most recently, these things have been used for. So we know that not all pet dogs pursue prey to death. You know, we know that because most of us have pet dogs that haven't killed a thing, right? But what's really interesting is that most working breeds have been bred and selected for parts of this motor pattern, the parts that they were useful to us and the parts that we wanted to kind of increase and see more of in these dogs. Okay, so let's break down each stage. We're going to look at its use and we're going to look at perhaps some of the dogs that we see that have this accentuated in them, and then what we can do as owners to kind of bring more joy to our dogs using this part of the scale. I love this stuff. So the first part is search, right? Search. This pattern, this part of it, is strong in the vast majority of our dogs. Most of us have dogs that like to search for things, right? And the primary way that they do this is with their nose, right? They're very, very strong, sniffy creatures. We know that their noses are incredible. They're incapable of such wonderful things. They can smell in 3D. That's insane. They can smell stuff behind them, in front of them, to the side of them. They are insane. Some of our dogs will smell the floor. We've got very clear nose to floor behavior, and they'll sniff around and they do this, and they might track with their nose to the floor as well. They'll put their nose down and they'll follow a track through the path. We see it sometimes in long grass that they'll follow around, or they'll follow it through the trees. You can often hear them clucking at the back of their throat when they're really getting into a good sniff. That's one of my favorite noises in the entire planet. Lucy's dog, funny enough, Safi, has the best cluck that I've ever heard on a dog. It's so loud and so strong. Some dogs will air scent. Now, I'll be honest with you, these ones, in my experience, are slightly less adept at finding their prey. They're slightly more useless. We used to have a big, stupid Doberman on our books, and he used to look up in the air and he used to sniff the air and then head off in entirely the wrong direction, which was hilarious because you'd think he'd have the better scent, wouldn't you? It's coming direct from the source across the field, but no. But yeah, some dogs will look up an air scent and then they'll follow it that way. Each dog is very different. And what's really lovely is that they're all the time, they're kind of playing a game of hotter and colder. Is the smell stronger over here, or is the smell stronger over here? We used to play it all the time as kids, warmer, 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 colder. Oh, and they're going to go that way, are they? Really, really, really good fun. And I tell you what, it's a great one to pick up on and really accentuate in your dog because they're going to get so much joy from it, right? If they're naturally showing a predisposition for smelling, most of them do, pick up on it and run with it. A very quick Google search gives you like 7,622 different options for playing sniffy games, doesn't it? You can hide food, you can hide toys, you can even hide yourself. Man trailing is a wonderful thing, and I would highly recommend that you get yourself involved with a bit of man trailing. If you've got the time and the energy and the patience, it's good fun, really, really good fun. Certainly moving forward this year, we're going to be bringing in some scent classes to the focus dog training list of things that we're offering, so that's going to be really good fun to watch out for as well. But yeah, if you want to pick up on that part of your dog's enjoyment, what a brilliant thing to do. Go for the search stuff, the sniffy stuff, right? The second part of the predatory motor pattern is stalk, right? Now, this one's really exaggerated in some of our collie friends. Those of us who've got collies know exactly what they do here, don't we? So they see the thing, they found it, right? They've gone searching and they found it. And what do? They get that hard stare straight up, don't they? And they like bob down, don't they? They like really like drop into those shoulders and they get into this really exaggerated stuff. And then what they do is they move towards the thing slowly. So stalk behavior is I've spotted the thing and now I'm moving slowly about it. If you're stalking something, you ain't going at it fast, are you? You're going real slow. You want to creep up on the thing, okay? Now, most dogs, like the herding breeds, our collies, will do very exaggerated, slow things, right? Every single dog that I have ever worked with, and you can imagine there's a couple of them now, every single dog that I have ever worked with will do something at this stage, even if it's not an obvious stalk down. Most of our puppies do kind of the opposite, actually. They like pop up a little bit and they get what I call triangle ears on, where their ears almost point at the thing that they're looking at. They're like, oh, and you can, that would be the noise that they would do, wouldn't it? Right? They kind of go, oh, there's a thing there, right? So for me, that bit fits into here. It's that kind of moment of it's there, that thing there. Okay. Now I can tell you, I have worked with hundreds of people that will literally say to me, my dog doesn't do any of that. And I can tell you right now, I'm yet to find a dog that doesn't. It might be fucking fast, but they'll do it. They do a thing when they see the thing that they've been looking for. And that, guys, is your magic moment of recall. If you want to stop the chase that's about to ensue, if you want to stop that running away from you behavior, you've got to catch it in that stalk moment. So like I say, for most of our pup, it's actually a pull up, it's a pop up. They almost chest puff as they're doing it. They kind of go, ooh, those ears will orientate to the thing. You often get a little lean in, a little lean towards the thing that's doing it. That is your magical moment to get yourself involved. If your recall cue works, wonderful. But if it doesn't work, then you're going to need to go and get yourself involved, because you know the next thing that's coming is the chase part. There's inevitability. It goes 1, 2, 3 here, right? Now, interestingly, we talked about finding things to do for our dog's search part of the motor function. We can find joy in here. We can give them the joy. There's not a right lot of uses for this for us as pet owners. We don't really care that they stalk stuff. It's not a useful thing for us to have, is it, right? You might want to do some play with that if you have a collie and you like herding sheep, because you do, or if you're really into your trick work and you want to do the stuff like you see it at Crufts, don't you? When they're doing like the dancing, you'll see that they actually go for a really slow stalk, and it's kind of like part of the Crufts experience, isn't it? That like the slow collie stalk. So you might want to mess around with it there. Most of us as pet owners don't have a use for that section, so we don't tend to need it. It's just really worth knowing about it from a kind of prevent the next stage part and when to get ourselves involved with them part. So that would be the stalk. So we've said already the third part then is chase. This is the inevitability. We've found it, we've searched for it, we've seen it, we're going to give chase to it now. Okay. So I don't really need to spell out what the dog does in this section, do I? I mean, you all get it. The dog's going to give chase. Now, what's really interesting there is the breeds that have this part heightened, that we've picked and we've selected for over the years. They've got this bit, and we've really selected them because they fucking love the chase. They're good for it, right? Greyhounds are the biggest, most obvious example, right? We literally still to this day have a sport that centers around how much that dog enjoys the chase. They put on bloody tracks chasing these fake rabbits. There's an entire sport dedicated to it. Those dogs, they don't search. When was the last time you saw a greyhound sniffing for a rabbit? They'd be useless. They don't do that. They're just not rubbish, right? They don't tend to go into a stalk. I mean, we don't see greyhounds doing all of this rubbish, do we? No, bang, they find the thing that they like and bang, they're straight into the chase. Bloody hell, like a greyhound out the traps, right? It's why it's a saying. They love the chase, right? Really obvious example. I tell you what, though, it's often overlooked how much terriers love the chase. Really easy for me to say. For those of us who don't have terriers, for those of us who do, we all know, we get it right. These guys were the unsung heroes. Think about what terriers were bred for. They were the unsung heroes of farms, right? They were bred to make sure that our farms stayed free of vermin, essentially. If our farms have got mice running all over them, our livestock gets infections, it gets diseases, our grain stores get depleted. We need our farms to stay vermin free. Terriers were absolutely bob on perfect for this. They'd see the rat and they'd go bang flying out after it, right? And I think it's a really easy thing for people who've never owned a terrier. They're like, oh, yeah, they like chasing. But I can tell you now, it's a skill within itself to look after a terrier, keep it in sight and keep it safe when you're in the middle of the woods in bloody September and it's fucking squirrel season. And you're stood there thinking, I'm going to have a heart attack in a minute. Like, God knows what. It's so hard. It's such a hard game. But it is a thing. They really, really enjoy that chase. They really, really do it. So, yeah. Some breeds are really interesting. It's interesting, Rachel, watching you here tonight, because some breeds have been bred to go underground in their search. So in their chase, they're bred to be very confident going under the ground. Okay, so think about some dogs that were bred to go after badgers, right? If your dog is underground, now these guys come with an extra bit of cheeky programming, right? They've got an extra bark that comes along with their chase. A lot of dogs will chase silently, right? But some dogs will bark as they chase. And that's really fucking handy. If you're stood above ground and your dog is below ground, you can hear where your dog is, right? You know that you're not going to shoot your dog when it comes out the hole, that you're going to shoot the badger. Really helpful for keeping your dog alive, yeah? It's fine if that's what you're doing with your dog. But if you're stood in the park, it's really bloody annoying when your Daxie's off running down the corner, gobbing off at everything that it's seeing, chasing, right? It becomes a little bit annoying, right? But that's what they're bred to do. So we see, people come to me and they say, my dog's barking as it's chasing. I'm going, yeah, it's fucking supposed to. That's what it's bred to do, yeah? So that one's good fun. Okay, some of us, believe it or not, have dogs that literally aren't bothered for the chase. So Bob, for example, he's a Labrador. He's 9 years old. He turns 10 in February. And I can absolutely, honestly, hand on heart, tell you that that lad has never chased anything. He's been sat in a garden and a little bunny's popped up. And I swear down, he went and he picked up his Kong and he took it away from the bunny because he was worried the bunny was going to get his Kong. That's a real story that really happened, right? He's had a squirrel fall out of a tree and land in front of him, and the lad stood there, looked at this squirrel, and you literally saw him shrug his shoulders and go off for a sniff because the chase part doesn't turn him on. He likes to sniff for them. Thank you very much. That's the bit. Now it's really interesting because I tell you, he's 9 and 10. You can imagine I'm pretty damn confident that lad doesn't chase stuff. I'm very safe with him. I'm quite relaxed with the lad. Turns out he fucking loves chasing foxes. Right? I don't know what it is. Something about a fox. Now, of course, I wasn't expecting this. We've moved house. And they're stood in the street chatting away. There's foxes everywhere around here. I don't know what it is. People must feed them or something. And I'm stood there, didn't think anything of it. Fox down there. I thought it's all right. It's Bobby. Don't chase now. Oh, he chases foxes. He was down the street, honestly. Ooh. So there we go. That's a little quirk of my lad. He curveballed me. Now, so clearly some dogs enjoy the chase more than others. Apparently some of them have the secret reserve of the things that they do want to chase. They just don't want to chase the things that are in front of them most of the time, right? Now, most of us as pet dog owners, again, this is what I keep coming back to. We are pet dog owners. We have these guys as companion animals to love and enjoy. We don't have a function for the chase part here. If anything, for us, it kind of gives us the wibbles, doesn't it? Because now what's happening is we're watching our very expensive prized possession run away from us real damn fast. And it feels like they're flicking the V's as they're going, doesn't it? It feels like they're going, so long, sucker, and they're off, right? And for us, with our big human brains, we're going, oh my God, the possibilities, right? You're going to get lost. You're going to get run over. You're going to get swamped away in a stream. We've got all these terrible things. With our dogs are literally going, this is brilliant. And they are off, right? So the difficulty is if we don't like a behavior, generally in dog training, what we say is we need to stop that behavior. We need to prevent access to that behavior. We need to stop them rehearsing it. And we need to find a suitable one that they can do instead. The problem is that the chase drive, it comes from inside and it's a real good kicker. When they get it, when they do it, when they're having it, when they're in the middle of it, oh, the reinforcement is just through the roof. They are genuinely loving it and having a fantastic time. It's very, very difficult for them to not have the chase. And so if we say to them, you can never do that, and we find real boring activities that we are happy for them to do, we tend to get pushed back on that because it's really hard to substitute for something boring. Instead, much better for us to find some things that they can chase and find a way for them to do the chase in a way that we feel is safe. So perhaps for some of us, that looks like keeping them on a lead most of the time because we're not happy and we're not comfortable, but then taking them to a secure dog field and letting them do everything that they want to do in that secure field. Maybe that is the compromise that we can have. Flirt poles are wonderful things if we can get our hands on them and use them and our dogs are interested in. I have to say, not every dog that likes chase automatically likes a flirt pole, but the vast majority do. You get that in your garden, you get spinning it around, and what your dog's doing now is it's getting that outlet, it's getting to chase the thing, but it's safe, it's in your garden, and it's doing it with you as well. It's now kind of common activity that you're doing together. It's a paired thing. Really, really good enjoyment. You can, and we can certainly talk you through it and help you through the process if you'd like to do this. You can teach your dog not to chase unless it's on a cue. So we can teach them that they can chase the thing that they want to chase when we say yes. And this is really clever. It takes some doing. I'm not going to lie to you. It's a challenge to teach, but it is possible. Lauren, for example, has done this with Luna. Luna loves chasing birdies. We think best guess she's a Labradoodle. She's a scruffy dog of sorts. She loves chasing birdies. She absolutely really enjoys it, yipping away, thinks it's fantastic. Lauren obviously doesn't love her chasing birdies because it's not very much fun. So she's taught Luna that she can look at the birdies and ask, can I chase it? And whenever Lauren goes, yep, there's nobody around us, there's nothing that you're going to get trapped in, you can chase it, she says, off you go, and she'll let her go and chase it. Luna will run away, the bird is obviously going to fly away, and then she'll come back to her as well, which is really nice. I know a trainer that has a couple of greyhounds, and he lets them run down what he terms squirrel alley. So they get on their walk, they're all on lead, they get to their walk, and he lets the dogs off lead and lets them run down squirrel alley. Obviously, he's, you know, ethical about it in the sense that he gets there real darn loud, and we're here on squirrel alley. So these squirrels have had a bit of a heads up that some greyhounds are going to come flying down there, and he makes a big show and tell of taking the leads off, and there's plenty of time. So the squirrels have had chance to run up their trees before the greyhounds are let out. But the idea is there, you are allowed to do the thing that you love. I'm just putting some rules around it a little bit here, so that's a good thing there. Okay, next part, the grab bite part. Now this bit is sometimes called grab bite, sometimes called grab release, sometimes called a soft grab. Basically, it's where the dog puts the thing in its mouth gently and doesn't bite down enough to kill it or maim it in any way, right? You're already thinking about them, aren't you? Our besties, our little Labrador friends. Of course, this is literally what they were bred for, isn't it? They're bred to this beautiful soft mouth. They're out with their owner shoots down some poor unsuspecting animal. Can't say I agree with with this whole process. Owner shoots down said animal. Labrador is sent to sniff out where said animal is, grab it, and not ruin it. It'd be very upsetting for this man with the gun, wouldn't it? If he's gone to all this effort to kill this animal, for it to come back a mangled mess, that'd be no bloody good to him at all, would it? So this Labrador needs to go pick it up very gently and bring it back to them, right? Now, this seems pretty obvious, and I can guarantee you, everybody that I've had this conversation with goes, yeah, get it, totally, completely understand it, right? I cannot tell you the amount of times I've had people either on the phone or I've literally sat in the park watching them getting so stressed out because their Labrador won't give them the ball back. Your Labrador is supposed to love having things in its mouth. Of course it can't give the fucking ball back. It's not supposed to. It's supposed to go and get the ball and go, I really like this. And it does, doesn't it? It goes, I really like this. And they bring you their teddies at the door, and you're in the park and they pick the ball up and they're waggling their ass at you and they're like, look what I've got, look what I've got. And then you go off, drop it, leave, off. And they're going, I can't, I'm too happy, I've got the ball in my mouth. That is a really clear example of the joy that they are getting from each part of this process, right? Those Labradors adore having things in their mouth. They're really soft mouths. They are having so much fun from it, okay? So for me, I mean, you all know I hate chase anyway, throwing the ball because of the joint problems and the repetitive injuries that we get from this. But for me, if your dog is actively telling you it loves holding that thing in its mouth, that's the bit of the game that it's loving. Let it love that part of the game. If it wants to hold the ball and have a lovely time, if it's safe and it's reasonable to do so and it's not nicked somebody else's ball, let it have that enjoyment, enable that enjoyment, find time for them to have that. Maybe you can bring different balls with different textures. You'll find that they have a different texture that they enjoy in their mouth. Maybe you can hide that ball for them to search and then grab and bite, knowing that these two parts of the predatory motor pattern are the two parts that your dog particularly loves. You see where I'm going with this? It's finding the bits that your dog's really enjoying and finding ways for them to have that enjoyment in their life and not kind of like overrule it with our human concept of what this game should look like. It's actually, what does the dog really like and how can I give them that in a really safe way that is okay for everybody here? So that's good. There we go. Next stage, then moving on, the kill bite. This one sounds horrible, doesn't it? It's not very nice. Okay. It is what it sounds like. It's a bite with more force. It's designed to essentially kill the prey that the dog has got its hands on, right? Its mouth on, rather. Now, All dogs are capable of a really deep bite. Of course they are. They have, these big sharp teeth. They've got tons of canines in there, and they've got the ability to clamp down on stuff. But most dogs don't get a great deal of enjoyment out of biting down. In fact, the vast majority of dogs that we live with, 99% of dogs, show great restraint around using their mouth and biting down on things, don't they? We don't tend to bite down on a great deal. They learn it as a puppy. They get it wrong a lot as a puppy. We get upset with them. We walk away from them. We get, do all of those things. And they learn as a puppy a little bit of mouth control, and they don't tend to be bitey with us. Exceptions, though, they exist, and our friendly terriers, again, these guys come up quite a lot with all of this. Our friendly terriers, often, if they do get the small furry thing that they were chasing through the woods, it doesn't usually end well for the small furry thing. The vast majority of times when a terrier gets its gob around it, it will kill it. And that's because it was absolutely necessary. It was absolutely bred into them that these farmers needed them to not just chase away the mice, because mice don't tend to listen to that. They don't tend to be like, oh, sorry, you're right, I was trespassing. No, they're going to come back in, aren't they? Because they've left their mate in there. So unfortunately, they did need to be killed. Now, little small dogs, terriers, don't tend to have like the bite force to actually kill stuff. So what we get to see here is that really lovely like head rag that comes along with it, and they'll pick stuff up and they'll give it this. You might see that they flick it up in the air, and it's a proper like flick. It's not just a flinging it around and, oh, this is fun and I'm flapping. It's a real strong flick up in the air, and this thing will go flying up and either land on the floor, or they'll go and try and catch it again as it's coming down. And that's just because they haven't got the force in their jaw to actually kill it. So they're having to come up with creative ways to make sure the job gets done, which is really pleasant, isn't it? But you'll often see them doing it with their toys. If they get their toys, their hands, not mouths on toys at home, they'll often shake them. And now that can look worrying, but what I can absolutely guarantee you is if you enjoy and take part in these parts of the predatory motor pattern that your dog's doing, what you're actually doing is meeting that need. So you're less likely to see it out and about in the world. You're not like creating this dog that's then going to go off and start maiming animals, right? What you're doing is you're meeting that need for them. So if your dog really gets into a game of tuggy and starts doing the head shake, go with it, roll with it, encourage it, celebrate it, be part of it. They're having fun, and they're showing you that they're having fun, right? Terriers, obviously, I've spoken about them, but obviously bull terriers get another portion of dogs that get real bad rep for this, don't they? Particularly in the press, and we've just had the XL bully thing coming around, and it's obviously this terror and this worry that comes around with this like strong bite. Now, the thing to be really clear about here is that any dog that may have been bred for fighting in the past, be it bullfighting, bear fighting, into dog fighting, they are not psychopaths. They do not get joy from kill. That's not what's happening here. They are not getting enjoyment from killing. They're not going, ha ha ha, they were alive and now they're dead. They don't have that emotional capacity. Then, I mean, a psychopath doesn't have emotional capacity either, do they? But you know where I'm going with this, right? They're not deliberately saying, hey, this was alive and now it's dead. I did that. Aren't I great? What they're doing is they're getting immense joy from that bite, that really hard bite. They're getting, like, when they're doing that, their endorphins are being released. Exactly the same as when my Labrador's holding its ball, endorphins are being released. Exactly the same as the terrier that's chasing something, endorphins have been released. It just so happens that these poor guys were bred to enjoy biting down on stuff real damn hard, right? So that's what they're doing there. And when they're biting down, they feel good, they feel better, they're gonna continue doing it. And they've just got the bad rep because they've been misused and mistreated, yada, yada, yada. That's a really entirely separate topic. Well, I've got you. There's no such thing as lockjaw. That is physically not a possibility. What's happening, you hear about staffies, don't you? They've got lockjaw. They don't. There's nothing different about their jaw. There's no mechanics in there that are any different. It's just that they really fucking love biting down. And they're keeping hold of it because they really like it. Yeah, that's what's happening. Okay. So how do we meet this need? We play tuggy. Like staffs and bull breeds in general, they love a good game of tuggy. And for me, there is absolutely nothing better than getting on the floor and literally having my arm ragged off by this dog that's having a whale of a time, right? Again, with tuggy, we teach this in all of our puppy classes. And if you've ever had any sort of like games-based training with us, like literal toy training, we will always tell you to go with the dog. What we often do with dogs is we ruin the game because we take the toy off them and we insist that they give it back to us. That's like playing the cheat at Monopoly. You get real bored of that real fast, don't you? So if you let the dog have the toy, stay with them. When they start ragging around, let them do that. If they start growling under their breath, they're telling you they're having a great old time. Go with it, roll with it. You might need to teach them finished means finished, and I'm going to put food on the floor and I'm going to take the toy away from you and put it up because the game has ended. But in general, go with it, let them enjoy it, let them have that bit. Okay, the last part, dissect. Okay, now this bit is the kind of like forgotten bit of the chain, because in general, Nobody really gave a shit. There was like no reason to care whether the dog was dissecting stuff. And think about the terriers, right? They were they were absolutely bred to go and get the mouse and the vermin that were coming in, right? And the farmer's a bit like, well, do you know what? If you've killed it, about it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't care. If anything, it's cheaper for the farmer, isn't it? Right? We would not see that in today's age. If we were still breeding dogs to do the actual job today, we would probably start knocking down that dissect and eat bit, because of course there's much more chance of chemicals being involved. But if you think about back in the day when they were truly breeding them to do this actual job, there weren't so many chemicals around, so it's fine, and eat the prey, don't really matter. And again, with like the really big fighting breeds, if they kind of dissected and ate the bear at the end of it, like, who gives a shit? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's fine. If anything, it's the spoils you won it. I've at it. And it means that we don't have to feed these dogs so much. They've got the prey there, right? So it's a bit of a forgotten one. And what I've noticed really interestingly is actually most pet dogs, lots of pet dogs, really enjoy this part of the motor pattern, right? Doodly things, lots of oodly things, love dissecting stuff, right? They love dissecting their teddies. How many dogs do we have that love shredding their teddies, right? And the post and the sofa, and they get themselves into all sorts of trouble for it. But what they're telling you is this is an inherent thing that brings me joy from the inside. I can't change it. It's a thing. It's like me saying I fucking love gin. It's a thing, right? And if we try and curb it and don't give them an outlet for it, we tend to see pushback on that, exactly the same as the chase, right? So again, just lean into it, give them what they're asking for, find a way for them to have it in a way that you deem safe. So stop buying the unstuffable things, stop buying the ones that, oh, it's tough, you can't get it, stop removing that dog's joy. Go to the charity shop, buy the 50p teddy bear that no kid wants anymore because it's covered in eyeliner. Go and get the things that aren't expensive and let them shred it. Obviously apply logic and reasoning. If it's got googly eyes and your dog's going to swallow it, don't give them that. Don't buy them the ones with the balls inside. It makes sensible decisions. But essentially, and if one of your family members is having a clear out and going, I don't know what to do with all these teddy bears, you go, I know. Dog will have them, right? Find a use for them. I have a friend who does a wonderful thing for her dog. She buys these toys from the thing, or she'll take them from wherever it is. She saves their insides. She saves the stuffing. She puts it in an old pillowcase, bless her, and it just goes in the cupboard and it doesn't get seen. And every now and again, an animal dies, and she puts the stuffing in the thing. And then after a while, it's full, and she ties a knot in the end of it. And guess what? That dog has an absolute field day, because it gets the world's biggest thing to dissect, and you can get yourself inside it, can't you? And it's bloody excellent, yeah. So you can bring joy in loads of different ways. You've just got a bit of cleaning up to do with that. Get over it. Do you know what? Life's short. It's fine, isn't it? You're never going to go around complaining that your dog had a nice time. It's a thing. So all of these parts, they're there out of necessity, and they're all things that we can pick up on and have fun with and enable for our dogs and find safe ways for them to have that outlook. So in summary, there's 6 parts. There's search, stalk, chase, grab, bite, kill, bite, dissect. Maybe they might eat it, maybe they won't. Okay. Some breeds of dogs have been bred based on their predisposition to certain parts of this, and it often shows up in their behaviors that we're seeing. When a dog's performing a part of this sequence, they're getting naturally reinforced. They're getting reinforced from the inside. It's really fun to follow a track, to go down into a stalk, to chase the thing, to hold the ball in your mouth, to bite down on the tuggy toy, or to shred the teddy. It's fun to do all of those things, okay? And as great owners, it's absolutely our role to notice what our dog enjoys doing, and where possible, to support them in finding a safe outlet for that, okay? So I hope you found that fun and enlightening. I was a little bit longer than anticipated there, sorry. I'm going to go now to Lucy and see if we have any questions come through. So Lucy, if you turn your mic on and throw something at me, that'd be good.
Yeah, so the first question we've got is from Margaret, and her question is, what's a flirt pole?
Good question. Right, think cat teaser on a massive scale, right? So it'd be like having a broom with a big old bit of string on the end of it, and at the end of that there is some form of usually furry animal smelling thing. So it's a really massive cat wand essentially, and it's got a smelly thing on the end of it, and you would stand in your garden, you kind of flick it around a little bit, and the idea is that you make it look like an animal, you make it look like a small fluffy thing, and your dog goes, ooh, small fluffy, and then you can like turn yourself in a circle and the dog can chase it, or you can change the direction of it and they would change direction to chase it as well. The idea is much like a cat wand. You would flick it around a little bit and your dog would chase it and go for it, and so it gives them an outlet to chase the fluffy thing, but in your garden, and it's attached to you at the end of the day. There are loads of YouTube videos. If you were to search on YouTube how to use a flirt pole, people will literally show you how they do it and how they get their dog interested, because it's not quite as simple. Dogs aren't quite as like turned on by as cats are. You can't just like flick it around and hope for the best. There's generally like techniques that tend to work a bit better, so that go on YouTube and have a little look. But they are incredible things if your dog's interested in them. Really great way to give them that little outlet there. Any more?
Yep, I've got 2 more questions for you. The first one is from Claire, and it's about Polly. So I've just got to get it up on screen. Polly, my cockapoo, does all the stages clearly except the grab bite, and is pretty terrible at carrying in her mouth and also retrieving, which I assume is the grab bite stage. Despite having the right genetics to do that in her breed, can that be woken up in her?
Good question. So yeah, so cockapoo genetically, again, very much a gun dog, isn't it? The cocker spaniel, bred to search out the thing that's come onto the ground, or to search it with a view to flushing it. So they might like the chase little part as well, because they're either bred to go and find it and bring it back, or flush it out so that somebody can then go and shoot it. And theoretically, if they get it, they're supposed to enjoy picking it up. We find that often when puppies come through puppy classes, cocker spaniels are terrible at tugging. They just don't want to bite down hard on it. They just don't find any enjoyment in biting down hard on it. Having said that, it is possible sometimes to teach a dog to enjoy something that they don't naturally have a predisposition for, I guess. So you can teach them to enjoy tugging if you play at it so much, and you could potentially teach her to enjoy picking things up gently. Having said that, I kind of get myself to the place of, is it really worth it? And for the vast majority of us as owners with pet dogs, like, we don't need the dog to enjoy doing something different, if that makes sense. Really, it'd be kind of nicer for us to pick up on the bits that they do like and really accentuate and go with them on that. There is an argument to say, work on your weaknesses. They're a dog. It's the weakness is something that we ascribe to it, isn't it? And that you could choose to play with it. So like picking up and practicing the hold, and presenting them with an object to practice holding, and then reinforcing that with something that they do find reinforcing, like the food. You might want to choose doing that, and she might start to pick it up. However, I've known Polly for a few years now, and we've tried it multiple times, haven't we? And she just doesn't show a great deal of interest in it. And I think it's fair to read them and say, we've tried it a few times. She's not really bothered for it. That's all right. Bit like me. I've tried coffee a few times, not really interested in it. That's all right too. So, we don't need them to do it. But yeah, really good. Claire, Polly is a really interesting case of a dog that theoretically, she's a really good example of how genetics are kind of a theoretical and a kind of an oversight, like an umbrella. But actually, when you look at it, there are really unique differences between the dogs that are in there, and that they all have their own preferences as well. So yeah. Perfect. Right. Last question then, Lucy, and we'll call it a day.
Yeah, the last question is from Rachel. So Rachel asks if you could explain about dogs that go missing and kind of go into rewilded behaviour and learn to avoid people and hunt when they've been domesticated for ages.
I think that's an entirely big. The conceptually, dog has got lost and then basically goes back to its roots. Is that, am I understanding that right?
That's the way I've understood it. And I guess that's also about fear and stuff. But
yeah, they've gone into survival mode, haven't they? Essentially. So I think some dogs will do this, and you'll hear the tales, and they'll be all over the news, won't they, of how they went missing for X amount of days, and they managed to survive. And you get this with humans as well. I think the statistics are not in the dog's favor, though, if I'm totally honest with you. Like, if they're going to get lost, the vast majority of them probably won't kick into the ability to. You don't just go out and all of a sudden randomly be very, very successful at hunting prey. You need a bit of practice at it, much the same as if you or I truly got lost in the middle of the Amazonian forest or something. Statistically, most of us would die. Some of us might make it out, and I think it would be a mixture of good luck in terms of this. Oh, that's Bob. Somebody's come home. A mixture of good luck in terms of like the genetics that you've got to hand, that where your strengths and your weaknesses lie. Good luck in terms of what was presented as opportunities in front of you, whether you had an animal in front of you that you were able to chase and that you were able to kill down, and all of the kind. I think it would probably be a mixture of luck. I don't think that it would be anything that we could guarantee would happen. So maybe just keep hold of your lead if that's where we're going with that one. Don't try not to lose your dog, because statistically, I don't think they will survive, unfortunately. That's not very nice, is it? Okay, right, we're gonna. That was a good curveball question. That threw me again.
there's
we're gonna call that a day. I see another question popped up, but I think it was about next week, and I can answer that real quick. Yes, there is one next week. I've completely forgotten what the topic is. I apologize. It will be a follow-on, I am sure, of something fun. Same time, same place. If you follow the link to sign up, you will see it as an available thing to do. And I, of course, will send out my usual email in advance. So yeah, thank you so much for joining me this evening. Absolutely smashing to see you all. Lovely, lovely time. Have a great evening.